This episode of GunBlog VarietyCast brought to you by lawofselfdefense.com. Go to lawofselfdefense.com/variety to learn about your state's self-defense laws. Sign up for one of their online or in-person seminars or buy the book Law of Self-Defense and get 10% off when you use the discount code VARIETY at checkout. That's lawofselfdefense.com/variety.
Welcome to another episode of the GunBlog VarietyCast with your hosts, Sean Sorrentino and Aaron Paulette.
Welcome to episode 105 of the GunBlog VarietyCast. How are you doing, Aaron?
I am in allergy hell. I know that Adam's refrain for I don't know how many months was, duh, I haven't slept. Well, my thing is going to be, my nose, I can't breathe. So I'm going to apologize to everyone listening to the podcast. I'm going to do my very best not to sniffle. If I do, Sean's going to yell at me. But hopefully...
and edit it out.
Yeah, but hopefully I won't do that. But also, I'm not going to be my usual animated self for that. I'm sorry. This thing has taken it out of me.
Well, I understand that you feel a lot better than you did this morning, however.
Oh my God, yes. This morning, I woke up with what I call an allergy hangover. And it really is like being hungover. It's just, I didn't have the fun of drinking the night before. I managed something that I didn't think was possible. My sinuses were stuffed up, and yet my nose was dripping. I have never been clogged and running at the same time. It was remarkable, if icky. So give me some good news, Sean. How are you doing? How's Dices doing?
We're doing fine. Dices is getting her normal walks. Unfortunately, Dices has discovered the joys of digging in the backyard, so no more unattended dog in the backyard.
Are we talking like digging under the fence to get out, or just digging holes and tearing up the lawn?
Yes.
Ah.
Honestly, I'm less worried about her just digging a hole in the lawn, though it's annoying. I still have a dog at the end of it.
Yeah.
If she decides that she's going to dig underneath the fence, which she has tried, we don't know if she wants out or if she just wants to poke her head out, or if she'll get out and wander around and go, oh, look at the great outdoors. This is kind of cool. Oh, look, a deer. Or, if she really wants out, maybe she's just playing and going to go stick her head out and wander around, which is enough of a problem. Or maybe she really wants out. I don't know. We can't take that risk.
Maybe if you got some cinder blocks and lined the fence with them, that might discourage her digging.
Maybe if we just got some hot wire and ran it around there and shocked her a good one once or twice, and that'd be the end of it.
Okay.
Because that's kind of what we did with my West Highland White Terrier when I was a kid. Now, Dices has already had some experience with an electric fence. Here's the problem. Dices was at a farm, and there was a horse running around in the pasture, having his little good time, and Dices says, oh, that looks like fun. I want to go romp and play with that big dog out there. My wife's like, oh, you're going to be miserable. She went up, zapped herself on the horse's hot wire, shook her face, looked at the fence, and jumped over the fence and started chasing the horse. My wife is like, wait a minute, you're supposed to think, oh, that horse got me. Not that dog. That dog knew exactly what got her and knew how to avoid it. And she's not a malicious dog, and she's not, she wants you to be happy. It's just that when something furry is running, I'm sorry, I'm going to chase. It's in my nature.
Yeah, we have a dog like that. Heath is, when the nose is engaged, the brain just turns off.
Yeah. There's still some residual ear function in Dices when the, flight, oh, look, I'm chasing. But it's really, really far behind the must chase. She hears you. It just doesn't mean anything at that point.
The human is yelling. If it's important, he'll catch up.
Yeah, seriously. Nothing hurts, so I can't be that bad.
Yep.
So we've joined a podcast network, the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Really? Wow, this is the first I've heard of it. What is the Self-Defense Radio Network, Sean? How does it work?
Well, it's something that Paul Lathrop of the Polite Society podcast has been working on with Bob Main of Handgun World podcast. And at some point in the next month or so, we'll be running some new advertising, which they're working on getting some national advertisers. Because that's the real problem with podcasts, is that while I could go to Triangle Shooting Academy and say, hey, would you like to advertise on the podcast? It doesn't do them a lot of good because a lot of the people who are listening to this podcast don't live anywhere near here. So any advertising that goes on a podcast has to be useful nationwide. That's why we've been doing stuff with Law of Self-Defense for so long, because it's nationwide. You can go to a class pretty much in any state. But how do people like me and you talk to national advertisers and say, hey, would you like to advertise on this podcast? He's working on something. Hopefully we'll have about 3 or 4 different national advertisers that we can pick from, and, ones that meet our standards and we meet theirs. We can both, get together and run some advertising.
So, what kind of advertising? Are we talking guns, ammo, audio equipment, what?
Well, I'm sure that it'll have something to do with firearms, but I'm not in on the choices so far. I don't even know who I would talk to. Once Paul has an idea of what's going on, he'll let us know. And if, like I said, if there are things that I feel comfortable being an advertiser on this podcast, well, I'll run it past you guys and see what you think, and then we'll put it out. And if I'm not interested, I'm not interested. I'm not going to take money from people just to take money from them. If I think it's a crap product or a stupid service, it's not going on. Hopefully, with a little bit of income, we'll be able to pay for a little bit better audio gear like we've been begging money for. We've got you pretty well set up. We still need to get you a nice headset and the last 2 audio connections, which will run about $60. That way you can do the show yourself.
And you can go on vacation.
And I can go on vacation. Or more importantly, my wife can go on vacation with her husband in tow, which is kind of what she'd really prefer. Oh, no, she's shaking her head over there. She's saying, no, I'll go by myself. I'm cool. So one of the things that I never really considered when I decided to put together a podcast with a whole bunch of people in it is that equipment costs are going to be pretty high because you've got to cover all of those people.
Mm-hmm.
So I know all you guys put out money for, about $80 worth of microphone and pop filter and that sort of thing. And that's doable. I mean, a lot of people can afford $80. But when we start getting into, we've spent $400, $500 just on the audio equipment you have now.
It's more if you count the audio booth that I'm using.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, the audio booth. Yeah, so we're going to be about $1,000 with all of the equipment that you end up with. At least 400, 500, $250 for the booth. Yeah, we're pushing $800 to $1,000.
And again, thank you to all you lovely people.
Yes, definitely. But I would really like to offload some of that cost to advertisers. Again, assuming those advertisers are people that I'd wish to be associated with.
Mm-hmm. I actually know a couple of representatives from different ammo companies, not the ones who make it, but the drop shippers.
Mm-hmm.
So you can pass this on to the people at Self-Defense Radio Network and let them know. And if they're interested, I can make some connections.
Cool. And we can take ads directly. If you know of people who'd be willing to advertise, if you listen to the show and you'd like to advertise, let me know. Go to gunblogvarietycast.com. Up on the top, there's going to be a little contact page. Click on that. Find me. Send me a contact. Let me know. If it's something we can work out, I'll let you know what our advertising rate is, as long as I think you're a product that would be useful and something that the listeners might like and something that I would feel comfortable being associated with. And if you're contacting us, you're telling me that you're comfortable with being associated with this podcast, we can make a deal.
Well, all right.
So Self-Defense Radio Network is on Facebook. So go to Facebook and just search for Self-Defense Radio Network or go to the show notes. There'll be a link in the show notes. So let's kick off the show. So you've started dating a new person and you want to go to the range together. Beth shows us how to navigate around the common pitfalls.
Not too long ago, I wrote a piece on ammo and amore, or tips for dating with guns. And the reason why I decided this was an important topic is because a lot of couples actually do want to know if going out to the shooting range is a good idea. While the tried and true dinner and a movie is always an important date staple, for those couples who are looking for something a little more unique, a lot more interactive, and a whole bunch more fun, they should try taking their dates to the shooting range. It's an innovative, creative, untraditional, and memorable way to bring guys and girls together. Just be sure that you follow all the do's and the don'ts. Otherwise, your plans just might misfire. So here are a few tips for dating girls who have guns and who know how to shoot. Here are the do's. Number 1, buy her ammo. It's like getting the popcorn and the M&Ms at the movie. Don't let her purchase that herself. Be a kind, considerate, and classy date. Do realize that this is not a competition like another night out with the guys. So have fun and be nice. And if your significant other happens to win, just let it go. Do consider a themed shoot. If both of you already know your way around firearms, you may want to spice things up a little with a themed shoot such as annihilating holiday targets, balloons, or even zombies. Check your local range for any special events. Also, do plan ahead for the next outing at the range. Make shooting something you do together as a couple as often as you can. A few times each year or once a week. Hey, start a new tradition. Gun Day Sunday, anyone? Now, on the other side of the coin, there are some don'ts. Don't try to be a hero. If you don't know something about the guns you're using, or if you have a malfunction that you cannot clear, ask for help. Date night is not synonymous with forego all safety rules night. Don't try to reenact the scene between Patrick Swayze's and Demi Moore's characters in the movie Ghost. Just always follow the safety rules. PDA and 2A do not mix. Also, do not be rude or tick her off. You do remember she has a gun and she knows how to use it, right? Okay, now there are also some tips for dating girls who do not have guns or who may not have ever even shot before. So here are the do's. Number 1, let her know in advance that the dress code is casual. A lady shouldn't shoot in something that could get ruined or that could potentially put her in danger. So leave those stilettos and the low-cut dresses for another night. Do warn her about things like loud noises, recoil, and ejected casings. Seriously, you don't want any of these things to come as a surprise. Tell her in advance what she can expect so she feels secure and prepared. Next, be prepared for any reaction. From enlightenment and empowerment to anxiety and shock, like a first kiss, you never know exactly how that first one will go. Also, encourage her. Smile, nod, applaud. Well, maybe just a little applause. Don't overdo it. Just make sure that your date knows that you're excited and proud that she is with you at the range. Okay, and now for a few don'ts for that girl who may not be comfortable around guns. Don't rent or use a gun with a lot of recoil. A big caliber in the hands of an apprehensive or physically weaker shooter is a really bad idea. Select something she will feel comfortable with and that she will enjoy shooting. Or her first shot may be your last shot as well. Next, don't offer too much advice or too soon unless she asks for help. Don't swoop down and hover over your date, making her uncomfortable. Be gracious and spacious with your words and with your actions. And finally, don't get upset or forget to have fun. Show your gal you're having a blast, literally and figuratively. And if the two of you enjoy this time together, who knows? Date night at the range could become your thing. Now, I share all these tips and thoughts because I really enjoy date night at the shooting range with my husband, and I have seen so many other couples really have a great time. Hope these tips work for you, and hope to see you at the range. Until then, stay safe and be well armed.
You can read more from Beth at usconcealedcarry.com/blog and click on Pacifiers and Peacemakers in the left sidebar.
This podcast runs on your donations. Go to GunBlog VarietyCast.com and click on the donate or the subscribe button in the right sidebar. You can make a one-time donation of any amount or subscribe for as little as $2 a month. That doesn't sound like much, but we pay our server costs monthly. A little help from you is a big help to us.
Felons behaving badly.
Sean, hang on a second. So, for our newer listeners, why are you doing a segment called Felons Behaving Badly? And why do we do this banter about, oh, I'm sure they were just choir boys turning their lives around?
Yeah, I started Felons Behaving Badly segment on my old blog originally. Anti-gunners like to say stupid things like, oh, having a gun means you're more likely to commit murder. Just because I can shoot you doesn't mean I want to shoot you. But they act like normal people. Regular gun owners are murderers in waiting.
Oh yeah, I hate that. I've actually lost, well, they weren't good friends, but I've actually lost some friends because they trotted out that whole, all gun owners are law-abiding until they aren't.
Yeah. Everybody loves that one, don't they? Gun owners just love being told, oh, well, you just have a gun so you can murder somebody. I feel bad for your wife. Your wife is going to end up dead one day just because you snapped and, you're mad at her and she didn't cook dinner right. Or, well, of course, if that's what's going to cause me to snap, it's never going to happen. Take a look at me. I'm fat for a reason.
But yeah, I mean, you could use the same logic, no one is a child molester until they are. And
yeah. Ugh, that's gross.
But it's a same sort of, stain on the reputation, and
I don't think it's going too far to call it blood libel. So what I'm trying to do with this segment is to point out how frequently those who commit crimes are actually full-time criminals. They aren't people like you and me. They aren't concealed carriers who just snap one day and start killing over fights in the parking lot over a parking spot or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a great story that illustrates this. NC teen arrested dozens of times before being charged with murder. Dateline, Charlotte, North Carolina. It's not often a teenager has collected more mugshots than the number of years they've been alive. That's the case for 18-year-old suspect. The teen was recently charged with murder in connection with the shooting death of victim. Victim and one other person were shot July 4th on Wheatley Avenue. The victims reportedly drove themselves to Novant Presbyterian Hospital where they crashed their car into the emergency room after being shot.
Well, that's certainly one way to get the doctor's attention.
Suspect is now behind bars in the Mecklenburg County Jail. He has been charged with murder and possession of a firearm by a felon. This is not his first run-in with the law.
So not only has he been arrested more than 18 times, because the fact that he's a felon means he's been convicted at least once as an adult.
That's right. Now, in North Carolina, if you're 16 years of age or older, you get tried as an adult. And anything that happens before 16, it's not an adult record, so it's not accessible. So I don't know how many times the guy's been to juvie. I have no idea how many times he was convicted as not an adult, but as a juvenile.
But based on his record, you would think a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. How many chances do you give the guy? You're just young. Suspect's been arrested 23 times in 3 years, said Marcus Philemon, executive director of the Charmeck Court Watch, a local organization that tracks repeat offenders who are going through the judicial system. Arrest records show suspect has faced charges for assault, communicating threats, and selling drugs, among other things. He's served time before, but always ends up back on the streets. We see these youthful offenders. They start out with minor crimes. They're never held accountable, claimed Philemon. Philemon said he has tracked suspect since the suspect was 16 years old. He said he has watched as the suspect has frequently received low bond amounts in court. It wasn't a total shock for Philemon to hear the teen was back behind bars on a murder charge. As community members, we're concerned about our safety. We're concerned about this individual's actions, explained Philemon. The Charmeck Court Watch leader said suspect should have already been behind bars before he had the opportunity to commit another crime. The ball was dropped many, many times along the way where they could have held him accountable and didn't, claimed Philemon. Officials said the district attorney's office told WBTV that North Carolina state bar's rules of professional conduct prohibit prosecutors from discussing the details of pending cases.
Wow. So when they say that he should have already been behind bars, are they talking that he just managed to bond out each time when he shouldn't have? Or are they actually saying that there was a problem with the cases and he was convicted but wasn't jailed?
I imagine kind of some of both. Now, I'm always a little bit leery of the bond amount was too low, they got out on bond, because that's baloney. A bond is merely a promise to appear. And it's a punishment to lose your bond if you don't appear. If you appear in court every time, then clearly the bond amount was high enough. A bond should not be set so high that you force somebody to stay in jail until their trial. That's not what bond is for. And in fact, it's actually against, I think, the Constitution in North Carolina. It's certainly against the law. Bond has to be reasonable. The only case where you can't get bond or where they can deny you just to deny you, if it's a capital charge where you could face death for it, then they don't give you bond. And that's part of the, I think it's the Constitution actually. But as long as they reasonably believe that you will appear, they have to give you bond, and that bond has to be something you can pay. So I'm not real fond of the whole idea, let's just keep them in jail until we've proven that that's not what pretrial confinement is for. Pretrial confinement is not a punishment. It's to hold the person to prevent them from fleeing before we get around to actually trying the case. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, once they're convicted, they really should be punished for what they did. So we already know the guy's a felon. Possession of a firearm by a minor, misdemeanor class 1, and 2 counts of cell schedule 2, felon class G.
Okay, hang on. Possession of a firearm by a minor, but this is an adult record.
In North Carolina, if you're 16 years of age or older, you are still legally a minor, but you're charged as an adult for any serious crimes.
Okay.
At 16, anything happens after you're 16, it goes on your permanent adult record. You have to be 18 to have a firearm in this state.
Okay.
So he's under 18, clearly.
Yeah.
2 counts of cell schedule 2. Now, schedule 2 is any drugs that have a high probability of being misused, but still have some medical use.
Like oxycodone.
I believe oxycodone, Adderall, cocaine, those are all schedule 2 drugs. But the 2 counts were 12/18/2015 and 1/15/2016. He was convicted of those 4/21/2016, and right now is the 18th of August. He was convicted in May, 2 felony counts of cell schedule 2, and he got suspended sentence, special probation, 24 months. And he already had a misdemeanor charge of possession of a firearm by a minor. But, let's give him another chance. I mean, he's only been arrested how many times? 23 in 3 years? Seriously?
Well, he's clearly an overachiever in the criminal department.
Yeah, and at 18, he's now facing never getting out again. But how many times have we said, he's previously been convicted of murder too? We've had several felons behaving badly on this podcast who were convicted murderers. Mm-hmm. And they spend their 15, 20 years, however much, and they get out.
So what about the victim that drove the car into the emergency room?
They only named one victim, the victim who died, and that person carried concealed weapon, misdemeanor class 2, and robbery with a dangerous weapon, felon class E. That's kind of the pattern, isn't it?
So since there isn't another victim listed here, it actually sounds like the driver wasn't a criminal, interestingly enough.
The reason that they didn't list him is because they listed the person who died because he was the victim of a murder. So I can't draw any conclusion at all about that particular victim, the one that was shot and survived, because they just don't name him. They didn't not name him because he wasn't a criminal. They didn't name him because he wasn't the person he was charged with murdering. So got me.
Okay.
Could be another felon for all I know. I mean, what's the odds that one felon shoots another felon and the guy driving the car is a totally innocent bystander?
That's why I brought it up. I just thought it was unusual that they didn't list him at all.
Yeah, it's not you and me. We're not running around murdering people. We're not killing our wives. We're not killing our boyfriends, husbands, sisters, brother-in-law. It's criminals doing criminal things. So that's why I do this segment every week.
Well, I can certainly see why this gets you all worked up, Sean. It is kind of a pity about your blog, but, you're doing the podcast now, so that's okay.
Well, there's only so many hours in the day I could take away from the family.
Yeah.
And I think even the amount that I spend already it's too much. If I try to blog too, no.
It's easier to stop blogging than to get a divorce.
And it's a whole lot nicer to stay married. Don't you love deceptive checkboxes in online forums? Check this, uncheck that. Do it all correctly or you'll end up buying things you don't need or downloading things that you don't want. Barron says there's a name for this. Dark patterns. He tells us about them in
Tech Tips. You are damaging my calm.
Tech Tips with the Barron.
Well, hey, Barron, what's new in the world of tech this week?
Well, Sean, this week isn't as much about what's new, but how checkboxes can fill up your hard drive and fill your inbox with subscriptions you really didn't want.
Oh yeah, uncheck this box if you really don't want us to install our spyware web browser add-on.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, Sean. The issue is so prevalent that there's even a term for it: dark patterns. Humans are like any animal, behavioral. If you understand the basics of what determines their behavior, you can design things that will cause them to act in a certain way. The company wants the users to do things that they wouldn't otherwise normally do. In this case, you manipulate a user interface to provoke the action you're looking for.
Could you give us some common examples?
One thing to always watch out for is to read any line associated with a checkbox and determine if it should be answered in the affirmative, checked, or negative, unchecked. It seems obvious, but many places will have the box checked to opt you out of something, and by unchecking the box, you agree to having the crap installed on your computer.
Because when I see a checkbox, I think I'm accepting or opting into something.
Exactly, Sean. There's a long list of different patterns. Another common one is referred to as the Roach Motel. Newsletters commonly fall into this situation. Once you're subscribed, it's very difficult to unsubscribe. Another version of this is things that offer you a free trial but require you to input your credit card. In order to activate the trial, you have to provide your credit card. Then when you go to remove yourself from the service, though, you're traveling through Hades to try and get it undone. Another common issue is hidden costs that only appear in the very last step of a checkout process, long after you've seen your cart and shipping information. Often the note is a fine print line just underneath the submit button. This is exceptionally common regarding subscription services. There's another one, though, that's certainly becoming more common: disguised ads.
That's when you're cruising a web page and clicking something suddenly redirects you as if you clicked an ad?
Exactly right, Sean. Oftentimes, though, it isn't even necessarily the website's fault. I chased down an issue where there was malicious JavaScript being injected into Weird's blog. The result? Random redirects to particular ad-related websites. Took me a while to find it, too.
So what can we do to keep from falling victim to this sort of thing?
First, if you see something weird on a website like redirects that don't make sense, contact the site owner. That issue had been going on for a while, and for the most part, I really didn't know it was happening. They can be selective about who sees the redirect and who doesn't. If you sign up for a trial of a service and you do have to use a credit card, use something prepaid. Additionally, go into the profile and make sure auto-renew is always turned off. This way, if you forget about the service because you weren't really interested in it after the trial, you won't get billed for it. And when installing software, scan the whole page for checkboxes and double-check any verbiage on if it should be checked or not. Oftentimes, they will have a series of boxes that they want you to pay attention to, and then another box hidden off in the corner they wish you to ignore. Additionally, feel free to check out darkpatterns.org for different tactics companies are using to trick their users.
All right, Barron, that's some good tips, and I'll see you again next week.
See you next week, Sean.
Barron still blogs at the-minuteman.org.
The main topic segment, the Gun Rights Policy Conference.
Which you aren't going to.
Yeah, unless somehow, like, the money fairy drops about $500 or $600 on my head, I just don't see how I can make it. I really want to go. The Gun Rights Policy Conference is something that Second Amendment Foundation does, I think it's every year. Maybe every 2 years now, I can't remember, but I think it's every year.
I'm pretty sure when we talked about this, it was last year, and I was subbing in for Adam. So I do think it is every year.
It's going to be in Tampa, Florida this year, September 23rd through 25th. That's Friday through Sunday. And if you can go, if you live near Tampa, if you can get to Tampa, go. It's absolutely a really awesome conference. You'll end up, I don't even know really, they call it the policy conference. And that, kind of gives you the image of, oh, I'm going to sit around a table and I'm going to listen to people drone on and on and on about stuff I don't care about. But it's actually a very, very interesting event.
Yeah, we had a podcast guest on, and I don't remember what his name is or when, in fact, he was on here, but he was talking about that. And he was talking about how the two things he loved to go to were the Gun Rights Policy Conference and the NRA annual meeting.
It was Paul Lathrop.
Okay, that was Paul Lathrop.
Paul Lathrop runs Polite Society podcast, in addition to now having started the Self-Defense Radio Network. And what the Polite Society does is every year at the Gun Rights Policy Conference, they set up a whole bunch of audio equipment and they live stream the Gun Rights Policy Conference, both audio and video. So he asked me, in fact, when we talked to him last, he was like, oh, you've got to come to Tampa. You've got to go to this conference. It's really awesome. You got to do it. And he wants me to come down and help him with the live stream. And I really wanted to go, except it's going to cost me about $500 to get there. I think it's like $170, $180 to fly. Plus the hotel is $109 a night. And you and I were going to split hotel rooms. So I would be responsible for 2 nights and you'd be responsible for 2 nights. So plus taxes. So we're looking at $130, $140 per night. And you got to feed yourself.
Yeah.
I would actually have liked to go to Tampa for some reason other than my company sent me there. It seemed like a nice place for the 5 minutes I got to look around when my company wasn't monopolizing all of my time. The food was good, but it doesn't look like I'm going to go. But I understand that you were going to go.
Well, things have become a lot more iffy since the guy I was going to split a hotel room says he can't go.
Yeah, what a jerk, man.
I know, right?
Can't you hate unreliable people?
It's so unreliable. I don't know why I talked to him. So here's the thing. Tampa is completely on the other side of Florida. Florida is long and it's kind of skinny, but I'm on the Atlantic coast and Tampa's on the Gulf Coast. And it may not look like that much to you, but that's about a 4-hour drive from Daytona to Tampa. So it's not like I could just drive there, then drive back home, spend the night, drive in the next day.
Yeah.
I would have to have a place to stay for the night. And
4 hours is me driving to Charlotte and almost all the way back.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trip. And so now I'm going to have to find either someone else I can split the room with, or I'm going to see if I can crash on someone's couch. I have heard rumors that Nikki Stallard of Pink Pistols is going. Maybe I can hang out with her. I'm trying to convince Tiffany Johnson to go. I am whispering in her ear like the devil on her shoulder, you want to go to the Gun Rights Policy Conference. You want to split a room with me. It'll be awesome. And the best I've gotten from her is, well, I want to. I don't know if I can afford it. I'll let you know this weekend.
Yeah. And take it from me. Now, you guys get to listen to her just on her little segments, but there's a lot of getting ready and talking about stuff before and a little bit after when we do this. She's really nice, really funny. So hopefully she will go and hopefully you'll get to see her because she's really awesome. But like I said, unless we get an angel to drop $500, I can't make it. I'd love to go. I'd love to be able to bring my audio equipment. I'd set up, do some interviews, but I just don't see it.
If we were to get a sponsor, would you perhaps be willing to, say, wear a T-shirt branded by that sponsor for the entirety of the event?
Ooh, see, now that's tough because I have a reputation for always wearing my purple polo shirt when I go to gun things. But I think I could unbend enough to wear a sponsor's T-shirt.
Maybe if we got a special purple T-shirt made for you.
Oh, wait, I know where this is going, Aaron. I see what you're doing here. You're going to say, hey, guys, come up with $500 or $600, and I will make the most ridiculous purple pony shirt and force Sean to wear it the whole time. That's what you're doing. That's what you got in mind.
I haven't the faintest idea what you're talking about, Sean.
Oh, dear Lord. Yes, I would go. I would wear the ridiculous purple pony shirt and post pictures of it and have guests talk about it when I interviewed them. If I could go, because it's really an awesome conference. The conference itself is free. And one of the things that they talk about is the amount of stuff you're given. It's like bring an empty bag because you're going to go home with a couple $100 worth of books.
Ooh.
You're going to talk directly with people that you've heard about, right? I mean, you can go to an Andrew Branca course and spend $150, take a class from him. You can talk to him directly. But how do you get to meet John Lott? How do you talk to, any of these gun rights luminaries, these people that you hear their names, and they're going to be there. And they're not just going to come out from behind the curtain, say their little piece, close the curtain, and run. These people go and then sit down in the audience and listen to the other people talk, and then talk to you in the breaks. These are the top people. I mean, this is the Second Amendment Foundation. And if you remember, the Second Amendment Foundation are the people who bankrolled Heller.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't an NRA project. That was Second Amendment Foundation. And who was the lead counsel for Heller? Alan Gura. Yeah, he's been to several of these things. I don't know if he's coming this time.
But he might.
I have talked to several people who've said, oh, not only was he there, not only did I get to talk to him, but dude was funny. Dude was a lot of fun to hang out with. Like, oh, you jerks. Got to hang out with these people? Yeah, if you can go. Past speakers, Alan Gottlieb, Joseph Tartaro, Eugene Voloch, Wayne LaPierre, Michael Reagan, Larry Elder, Bob Barr, John Lott, Mark Waters, Sandy Froman, Rick Patterson, Gene Hoffman. Gene Hoffman, big fun. Got to talk to him if you get a chance. He's from California. Actually, he's from North Carolina. He lives out in California. Tim Schmidt, Masad Ayub, Tom Gresham, Alan Gura, G. Gordon Liddy, Larry Pratt, Emily Miller. These are all people who've made it to these things. These are names you know already. So if you have a chance, if you can make it, go. Say hi to Aaron. Aaron's got a couple of stickers. Have you given any of those stickers out?
I haven't given any out.
So you have one for yourself and you have 3 extras, I think?
I think so.
So maybe see Aaron. Maybe get a sticker.
I'll even autograph it.
Cool. I want an Aaron autograph sticker. I don't have a sticker autographed by you. And yes, if y'all want to cough up I think we'll set it at $500. If we get $500, I will go and I will wear whatever ridiculous shirt Aaron comes up with for me. And I will post pictures. I'll send it out on Instagram. Y'all get to see it. And I won't just wear it and then take it off and do the conference. I will wear it for the whole conference.
We might need to get extras because that one will probably get a little stinky.
Well, you're a girl. I'll make you wash it. We're going to be sharing a room anyway, right?
Yeah, I'll do that in between making sandwiches for you and giving you foot rubs.
No, we don't have to go that far. I can wash my own clothes. But yeah, multiple shirts. Don't get them too stanky. Ugh. And now a word from our sponsor. You know what will happen. If you ever have to defend yourself, you're going to end up in handcuffs. Are you trained to win the fight after the fight? Sure, you can draw, aim, and put 2 in the 10 ring, but have you learned your legal self-defense? Do you know the law? Go to lawofselfdefense.com/variety to sign up for your legal self-defense class. Each class is tailored to the laws in your state. Attorney Andrew Branco will teach you the law, not just what the law says, but what the judge's legal opinions say, what the jury instructions say. Sure, you could risk spending the rest of your life in prison because you followed the advice of some gun store counter jockey, or you could spend the day with the man who literally wrote the book on the law of self-defense. Carry a gun so you're hard to kill. Know the law so you're hard to convict. Go to lawofselfdefense.com/variety to sign up for a legal self-defense class in your state. And make sure to use discount code VARIETY at checkout to receive 10% off. Tiffany is on assignment and will return next week. And now it's time for Blue Collar Prepping with that bratty kid sister of the gun blogosphere, Erin Paulette.
Come on, every pony. It's time for Blue Collar Prepping with Erin Paulette.
Hey, Sean, did you know that I have my own YouTube channel?
Videos, Erin? I thought you hated being on camera. I mean, like, you won't even turn on the Skype camera while we're recording the show. You're not on video. This can't be possible.
It is true. I have my very own video channel where I make unboxing videos. And because these videos are focused on the stuff coming out of the boxes, the only part of me you see are my hands, which, being hobbit-sized, are actually kind of cute. Now, I will admit my videos were rough at first, but they are getting better, partly because I'm gaining experience with what works and what doesn't, and partly because the neat gear that people got me to use for the podcast can also be used for the videos.
Awesome.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you. So between that and a handy little program called Wondershare Filmora that I use to edit out things like flubs and sneezes, I'm becoming rather not terrible at this.
So what kind of things are you unboxing? It's ponies, isn't it? I bet it's ponies.
That's a good guess, and it's totally in keeping with my character, but no. Although, note to Hasbro, if you guys offered a My Little Pony themed loot crate, I would be all over that in a hoofbeat. So, right. Given that this segment is about prepping, my videos are about me opening a box related to camping, prepping, and survival. It's called an Apocabox, and it's put together by survivalist Creek Stewart. You may not know who he is. If so, check out the link in the show notes. But Creek is one of the very few people whose survival shows I will watch because he is authentic. He knows what he's talking about. For people who were in Boy Scouts, he was an Eagle Scout.
Is an Eagle Scout. They don't was that. That's like being a Marine.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Once you're an Eagle Scout, you're always an Eagle Scout. My bad. Now, I'm not trying to sell you folks on buying an Apocabox subscription for yourselves. I'm just letting you know about it and know why I like it and pointing you at my video channel so you can see for yourselves whether or not you want to try it out.
And what's a little shameless self-promotion among friends, right?
Well, that's true. You know, the more viewers I get... Actually, if I get enough viewers, I could actually stop paying for this. But I have to get, I think 2,500 viewers. I'm not there yet. But if you want to subscribe to my channel, that would be awesome. Thank you. So every other month, I get an Apocabox, and it's full of interesting stuff. It is a bit like Loot Crate, but for preppers and survivalists rather than nerds and geeks. Now, some items are commercially available, but others are kits that Creek has put together to teach skills. For example, in one of the boxes was a willow leaf carving knife and a wood blank, and we were given directions on how to carve a spoon, and I carved a spoon out of it. In last month's Apocabox, there was a kit with instructions on how to create an atlatl, which is a piece of wood that hurls a spear. Well, actually, it's called a dart. It looks like a spear. It's kind of a javelin. It's complicated. But it hurls this projectile with a hinge motion that actually increases the force of the projectile.
Well, you would have no way of knowing this, but when I was in, I think it was junior high school, we did an entire segment on maybe it's not right to call it primitive tribes anymore, but I mean, that's basically what we did. We did it on African tribes or prehistory or something like that. And we had to build a primitive weapon or some primitive tool. I don't remember if it was all weapons or tools. I don't know.
Cool.
Well, I built an atlatl. Have you ever bought a large amount of fabric and it'll be on a roll?
Mm-hmm.
Not the flat chunk of cardboard that they wrap fabric around in the regular fabric stores, but I'm talking a cardboard tube.
Oh, actually, no, I haven't done that, but I get what you're coming from.
Know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Well, I cut one up and turned it into a spear or a dart, I guess you said, with a wooden head so that it wasn't actually dangerous. Mm-hmm. And I nearly knocked my dog out. I was really impressed with it.
Yeah, they're really cool. And, so you've got this kit and it teaches you how to build a hunting weapon, and that's neat. So the Apocabox is a fun, hands-on way to teach useful skills, and I really like it. Now, I understand that some people won't go for it, which is fine, but for me, it is a winning combination of here's a present, what's inside, and use this stuff to learn how to make something useful or acquire a useful skill. Now, here's the drawback of the Apocabox. It's expensive, or at least I consider it expensive. Remember, I'm a cheapskate. So each box costs $50 plus $10 for shipping. But remember that this is only every other month. So from a monthly perspective, it's $30, which I can most of the time put aside. What's more, at the end of every video, I add up the prices of everything that's included because it's on the inventory sheet, and I always get more than my money's worth. Each box is usually filled with around $100 worth of goodies. Now, there are inevitably some people who will say things like, well, I could source materials for far cheaper than that, and that is a legitimate complaint. It is always cheaper to assemble a kit from scratch than buy it pre-made.
I hate when I hear people say that. Oh, I could get this cheaper. But you're not going to. So zip it. Yeah, we see that a lot in other locations like the SCA. We hear that all the time. Well, I could make that, but you're not gonna.
Well, then do it and stop talking about it.
Exactly.
But I like the Apocabox for two reasons. The first is like I just said, it comes with skill challenges that teach me things, and then I get to keep the tools afterwards. And the second reason, and far more important in my mind, is the fact that it exposes me to things that I haven't thought of. For example, it never occurred to me that I might need to wash out my eyes in an emergency, but that makes perfect sense in hindsight. There are plenty of accidents and disasters that can put harmful substances into the air that might damage your eyes. So when one of the Apocaboxes came with something called an ice wash, which is just an eye wash cup that screws onto a plastic water bottle and you crush the bottle and it fountains the water out into your eyes, I thought this was brilliant and I immediately added it to my kit. Should I have thought of this? Yes, but preppers can't think of everything, and so this is filling in the gaps of things that I can't think of. It's like Donald Rumsfeld, when he says there are known unknowns and unknown unknowns.
Yes.
This is helping me fill in my unknown unknowns. So as far as I'm concerned, the exposure to new ideas and new techniques is well worth the money. Plus, it gives me something to talk about every other month. So please check out my video channel, linked in the show notes. I just received August's Apocabox on Thursday, and I hope to have the video of its unboxing up by Friday or Saturday. I give myself that cushion because every time I've tried to upload the video, it's always taken like 10 times longer than I expected it would. But it ought to be up by the time you listen to this podcast. So watch an unboxing video and see for yourself if the Apocabox is right for you. If so, great. Get a subscription and enjoy having prepping-related goodies delivered to your door every other month. If not, also great. You can stick around and watch my videos every other month and scoff at me as I spend money. So long as I have people watching the videos, I'm happy.
And then you can say, well, I could do it cheaper. And then you won't. Or maybe you will, and you can do a video in response. Hey, look, I made all these things. Because you know what? If you learn something, that's great. That's what we want. Not only can you subscribe or donate to the podcast, you can also make a contribution to the LGBT Training Ammo Fund. Go to GunBlogVarietyCast.com and click on the LGBT Training Ammo Fund donation button in the right sidebar. I'll use this money to pay for range fees, targets, and yes, ammo for the people I teach. And thanks for your support. This week, Weird goes back to the Massachusetts Attorney General press conference, this time to give her supporters a patented Weird audio fisc in This Week in Anti-Gun Nuttery. So hey, Weird, what do you got for me this week?
So remember when I fist Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey and her bizarre and insane reinterpretation of the state's assault weapons ban? Well, she wasn't the only one on stage. Turned out she brought a few friends along to sing her praises. And they said some pretty interesting things. First, I had to lead with Josh Sugarman of the Violence Policy Center. To somebody who's been chasing anti-gunners as long as I have, he's a legend in the field. But he's fallen on hard times and has drifted into obscurity. It's interesting he's here because he's the man who actually coined the term assault weapon. I quote, "The weapon's menacing looks coupled with the public's confusion over fully automatic machine guns versus semi-automatic assault weapons, anything that looks like a machine gun is assumed to be a machine gun, can only increase the chance of public support for restrictions on these weapons. In addition, few people can envision a practical use for these weapons." For those that are curious, I have the original VPC article with that quote in the show notes, just in case you think I'm being uncharitable to old Josh.
Since our founding in 1988, the Violence Policy Center has worked to stop the sale of military-bred semi-automatic assault weapons.
This is actually the first time I've ever heard his voice. Isn't he so sweet and adorable? To think this little cherub helped usher in some of the most draconian laws against the Second Amendment in the nation's history. So we just learned that Josh called the firearms he was targeting assault weapons because it was very close to the military term assault rifle for the sole purpose of getting people confused that they were banning actual military hardware. Obviously, that wasn't enough. Now, evidently, Josh has discovered some GMO research lab where Smith & Wesson is crossbreeding M16s with M1 tanks to sire a class of weaponry so evil that they can be bought and sold in any gun shop in the country?
Assault weapons are military-bred, anti-personnel weapons designed to kill as many people as possible in as short a time as available.
Now that is impressive. Not a single thing he said there was even remotely true. That takes skill.
In 2014, the most recent year for which information is available, our research shows that 1 out of 5 law enforcement officers slain in the line of duty was killed with an assault weapon. And yet, the gun industry constantly works to find ways around the few assault weapons laws that are on the books on the state level, making actions like those announced today critical to protect public safety.
So this is a very interesting little manipulation of statistics. He's actually almost correct. The FBI does indeed list that 1 in 5 officers murdered in the line of duty were killed with rifles. But they don't stipulate what kind of rifle. So these could be AR-15s, or lever-action rifles, or even black powder rifles for all we know. So he's fudging a bit here. But what he's also fudging is the raw numbers. In 2014, 51 officers were murdered in the line of duty. 11 were murdered with a rifle of any kind. Note that there are approximately 800,000 sworn peace officers in the United States. That means 6 times 10 to the negative 3% of all officers were murdered. Only 1 times 10 to the negative 3% were murdered with a rifle of any kind, assault or otherwise. That's 0.001%. I'm failing to see a problem here. Next, we have Suffolk County District Attorney Dan Conley.
We in Boston know that even one homicide is one too many. But cities like ours, which annually see mid-double-digit homicide rates most often committed with illegal handguns, could easily see triple-digit homicide rates if high-capacity assault weapons are allowed to continue to proliferate unchecked.
I love this logic. I heard a similar thing said by an anti-gunner after Heller versus DC struck down the district's handgun ban. Crime dropped in the district. And they said, but imagine how much more it would have dropped if the ban was still in place. This is magical thinking that is supported by no evidence.
Of more than 1,700 Massachusetts crime guns recovered last year, fewer than a quarter of those guns were traced to a retail sale here in Massachusetts. The remainder made their way to our streets and our neighborhoods from states as close as New Hampshire and Maine and as far away as Arizona. Why? Because the federal lawmakers who could standardize sensible gun laws are missing in action.
I really don't know about the numbers of guns traced to a lawful dealer, but I assume he's right. But his numbers are just BS. Fewer than a quarter? Not even close. According to the most recent ATF data, out of a total of 979 traces, 402 came back to Massachusetts. That's 41%, not fewer than a quarter. And the average time to crime is nearly 14 years. His story about gun smuggling is losing air faster than Tom Brady's football. Plus, the gun smuggling he's lying about is already a crime, and not happening. So let's focus on assault weapons, which also aren't a problem, as there were no murders with rifles of any kind in the state of Massachusetts in the last several years.
But if Congress will not act, then we in Massachusetts will.
Illegally. Man, Massachusetts was the birthplace of American freedom, and its grave. Last up, I have Police Chief William Brooks of Norwood. His demeanor and New England accent really give him a down-home feel. But when you listen to what he's actually saying, he really gets his brown shirt on.
The Commonwealth's assault weapon statute has been in place for many years. To her credit, the Attorney General could have just begun conducting inspections, but instead she's letting everyone know what is expected of them, particularly gun shops, before those inspections or any enforcement action take effect.
So rather than issuing a letter and having a press conference on a very controversial reading of a long-standing and well-settled law, she could have just started seizing guns and shutting down businesses for behaving exactly how they were told to operate within the parameters of the law. Unsettling? He gets worse.
Police chiefs play an important role. Unlike in so many states, licenses to carry can be denied if a chief, using his discretion and judgment, deems the person to be unsuitable.
Unsuitable simply means they have done nothing wrong, but the chief simply doesn't like somebody, and without any due process will deny them their constitutionally enumerated rights. It's basically double secret probation. Hell, in most towns where the chief does exercise his may-issue powers, it's against everybody. Well, except for close friends and political associates. This is not good legal behavior.
I went to buy an off-duty firearm, and I went to a gun shop where I know the owner, and we were having a pleasant conversation, and he was going through the paperwork and He picked up the phone and he was doing the national NICS check. Now, I know this gun store owner very, very well. And he was on the phone and he kind of covered it and said there's a slight delay. And when he was all done, he hung up the phone. He says there's going to be a delay. It's going to be another day or two before this is complete. And he picked up the gun in the box and all the paperwork and he went into the back room. Now, he knows me. He knows who I am, but that's exactly what I would expect. And he knows that that's what I would expect. And that's exactly what's supposed to happen.
This is meant to be an uplifting story about how the laws should work. Except it isn't. This is a highly decorated police chief. There's no possible way that Chief Brooks is a prohibited person, so his civil rights were taken from him for no good reason. I remember when all good little liberals used to say a right delayed is a right denied, but now they're celebrating every delay that they can manufacture. If Chief Brooks is denied or delayed a sale, it means the NICS check system is broken. And it is. These are all anti-gun nuts fabricating problems and being dishonest about Attorney General Healey's actions. All because they want to ban guns. They want to ban them so bad. But the antis are always telling us, nobody wants to take your guns away. Well, we just listened to 3 right here.
All right, Weird. It was good to talk with you. I'll see you again next week.
See you next week, Sean.
In addition to appearing here, Weird is a regular host on The Squirrel Report and blogs at weirdworld.com. That's WEERD world.com.
Plug of the week. Have you ever watched the TV show Aquarius?
No, I have not.
Probably haven't even heard of it, have you?
No, I have not.
Yeah, it was something that Netflix sprung on me very recently. And I'm like, the Manson family. Oh, this ought to be good. I like watching things where they show me people that are, I would say they were crazy, but they're not really crazy. The Manson family, for those who for some reason have no idea who the Manson family is, just Google Manson family. Charles Manson. Oh my goodness. Back in the 60s, Charles Manson gathered a group of people around him and sort of had kind of what we would think of as maybe kind of a cult, but it wasn't really a cult. It wasn't really a terrorist group or a crime family either. It was just sort of weird bunch of people. Eventually, a large number of them, including Charles Manson, ended up in prison for a series of very, very disgusting murders, including of Sharon Tate, who was an actress at the time.
Also pregnant at the time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, ugh, crazy stuff. Aquarius, the TV show, something done by NBC, and it's on Netflix. It's also on NBC.com. You can actually watch it online. It is historical fiction. The guy is not trying to say this is what really happened. He's like, all right, we're going to take the bones of the story and we're going to write a historical fiction around it of, people that didn't really exist. So there's a politically connected family and their daughter runs off, gets sort of kidnapped kind of, but then runs back ends up part of the Manson family.
Oh, kind of like Patty Hearst.
Kind of, but Patty Hearst was actually kidnapped.
Yes. But they're sort of mining that idea from her and
yeah. And this girl was sort of picked up at a party.
Okay.
But you watch as, you figure out as she does that Charles Manson had sent some girls in to pick up on her boyfriend and piss her off so that they could say, oh, honey, you don't need that man. Come with us. You get to watch psychopaths in action. And I find psychopaths fascinating because, when people don't actually care about you as a human being, they view you as a source of revenue or a source of entertainment. You're going to entertain them with your pain and suffering or with doing what they tell you and that sort of stuff. I find that fascinating because I just don't get it. I don't get why people would fall for being part of that group. What do you get out of being one of Manson's followers?
Well, they get a sense of belonging. They belong to something bigger than themselves. And some people, maybe even most people, like to be told what to do.
I think that's true. It's just hard for somebody like me to understand that because I don't like anybody telling me what to do. There are people who are like, oh, this is fun to be somebody's toy? Ew.
Well, I think it's more like if you don't have to think, then you are absolved of personal responsibility. And if you don't have responsibility, then you sort of enter that carefree, childlike lifestyle. You're basically giving yourself up to another parent who will take care of you and think for you.
Yeah.
And if you don't want any adult responsibilities, that's the way to go. You end up becoming their slave, but maybe that's what people want.
Right. And these are people who don't actually care about you. You're just another pawn to be pushed around. So there's stuff like this. There's like the Jonestown massacre, which happened around the same time frame, 60s, 70s-ish. Before the show, you and I talked about the Bader-Meinhof complex, which is a movie that I think you can only find on Amazon downloads for like $3 now. But I saw it on Netflix. And it's a discussion of the Red Army faction, the German terrorist group. And you watch these people and you're like, are you kidding me? Like, what part of that seemed like a good idea? So it's fascinating. It has a lot of, all right, these are the people. I mean, this is like the worst of the worst, but these are the sort of people that you are carrying a gun to defend yourself against. These are people who broke into somebody's, in the case of the Manson family, broke into somebody's house. It was Roman Polanski's house, murdered everybody they found, and then had dinner, and then, left. This is why we carry a gun. You need to see these people in action and realize that they don't come with a sign that says, I'm a bad person, you probably should shoot me now. They look like normal human beings. They're just missing that part that says you're important in the world and they can just use you. So check it out, Aquarius, NBC.com, or also on Netflix. Well, that's our show for the week.
Find the show notes at gunblogvarietycast.com/episode 105.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the GunBlog VarietyCast. Music courtesy of Rob Allen at blog.roballen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play Music. This podcast is made possible by the Firearms Policy Coalition and by contributions from listeners like you. This is a URS production.